Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here, especially you, Zoltan. Let me introduce our panelist here today, our speaker. Zoltan is a professor of public policy at George Mason University, and he's also the president and founder of the GEDI Institute. So not Jedi like the Jedi Knights, but Jedi with a G, and he's going to talk a little bit about his work today. And thank you so much for being here. And please, he's also been called the godfather of entrepreneurship. So it's your opportunity to ask him any questions you have. Slido is right there, so please take that chance. So, welcome.
Thank you.
And I get the chance to speak on a lot of these different panels, and the title of this one is one of the most provocative titles of a panel in some time. So thinking about how important is digital technology for the survival of the human race. Are we in a life or death situation here? How much time do we have left, and can entrepreneurship save us?
You know, it's actually a scary topic. I was scared myself when I looked at it. It's like, oh my God, this is like, what's really happening? And I like to think back about 100 years when we invented electricity. And the interesting question is, was electricity important for the survival of the human race 100 years ago? And if you think about it, if we got rid of electricity today, this place would be dark, we wouldn't have the technology, we couldn't do anything we're doing here. And so electricity gave us all sorts of wonderful things, from the washing machine to the refrigerator to television. All those things that we enjoy today came from electricity that I think did make the future of the human race possible. And so today, sort of 100 years later, we're sitting here and we're asking this question, right? Is digital technology important for the survival of the human race? And so the question is, what is digital technology? And it's just like electricity was a ubiquitous technology that went into everything. And what we're learning here today, and we know digital technology goes into everything. Mm-hmm. And figuring out how to make that technology work the way we figured out how to make electricity work for everything is, I think, where we are. And I do think that the digital technology is the key to our social sustainability.
And kind of talking about this digital transformation that we've been going through, you outlined 4 kind of key concepts that we need to be concerned about. So the point about privacy, competition, efficiency, and security. Which of these presents the biggest challenge, and why have you identified these as the key concepts we need to keep in mind as we move forward from this digital transformation?
It's really hard to get a handle on what the real issues are, right? If you read the media, they tell you we should be terrified of everything. All our data's being stolen. The Chinese are coming. Google's a monopoly, right? And it's like, oh my God, what's going on, right? And you come here and you say, wow, we're inventing the future. So what I think is really important and why these 4 concepts fit in is we are actually inventing the future. The future doesn't happen by itself. We have to invent it. And if you look around this room, what you notice is that young people are at the forefront of this. I know we just have 4 old men up here, but if you go around, look at these companies, look at everything, what people are doing, the youth invent the future. And so what I was interested in was, what are the key sort of concepts that are really important for us to invent a socially sustainable future, right? Everybody talks about environmental sustainability. You know, the environment doesn't shoot us. People shoot us, right? And so unless we get social sustainability going, where we can all live comfortably and securely, the future is going to be terrible. And so these four issues, right, of efficiency, right? Innovation is about inventing things to help us do things better. From the iPhone on, and everybody's talking, right? So innovation and efficiency, that's one of the key concepts, right? On the other hand, privacy is also important. How do we make sure that we live in a world where the information we have is there for our mutual benefit? And then we know that monopoly in businesses by itself is not good, and we need competition. And then the last one is this issue of security, right? So we've invented this digital world, but this digital world has to be secure. We have to make sure that it's secure to go online, that it's not being used in a negative way. So these four concepts are not the only ones, but if we have these four working for us, we have a secure environment, there's a reasonable level of privacy, there isn't monopoly power taking advantage of us, and we're innovating to make the world better, I think those four concepts are as good as any four that I can come up with.
And so when we're thinking about this social sustainability, whose responsibility is it? So we have big companies have more power than ever before. We have governments trying to drive the narrative. We also have multinationals and supranational organizations like the EU especially trying to create a more just social system. Who has the responsibility here, and is it possible for government or nonprofit or private agencies to rein in some of these companies that have become so huge and have so much power?
Everybody always looks to trying to identify something that governments can do to make the world better. That's a very old-fashioned top-down approach. What the digital revolution's about is that the future is not in the government inventing the future, but in people inventing the future. So it's all of us working together. The governments, the corporations, the nonprofits, those institutions are all important, but it's the people. And it's just not the people just in this room, in this country, but throughout the world that are going to make the world a better place. Let me give you a couple examples. How long did it take for electricity to get to everybody in the world? It still hasn't happened. Everybody still doesn't have electricity, but half the world has a smartphone. In another 10 years, everybody will have a smartphone, even if they don't have electricity, because we can find ways to charge them. And it's everybody working together, cooperating, that is going to invent this future that is sustainable.
So you're talking kind of, there's digital transformation is still quite uneven. So while a lot of people have smartphones, not everyone does. 3.9 billion people don't have regular access to the internet or even capability. So how can we help make that transformation more even?
It only took 10 years to get half the world to have a smartphone. In the next 10 years, the other half will. So I don't think this is something that we should be worrying about. The rate of change has accelerated so much. So it took electricity 100 years. It took the telephone. We never got to the point where everybody had a landline. But just about everybody has some sort of cell phone. So this transformation has connected up the world in a way that the old technologies never did and couldn't. And so the key, I think, is this whole issue of collaboration, cooperation, working together. And what the digital technology does, it puts everybody in contact and everybody is connected. And now one aspect of this, privacy, that privacy issue is overrated, right? The real issue is everybody in the world is a user. Everybody is a digital citizen. And that's an overrated term, but it's true. And so our responsibility is to enable people all around the world to become comfortable with and use these technologies in a collaborative and cooperative fashion.
Right. So if everyone is a user in this digital system, we don't always have ownership over the data that is being compiled by us. And it kind of speaks to one of the questions that we have on here is data capital or labor? How would you respond to
What do
that?
you mean data capital or labor?
Is data capital or labor? If everyone's a user and supporting,
Data is data, right? And what's interesting is today we have data where we never had data before. And that data is only as useful as it helps users and businesses to do a better job, right? Think of Uber. What's Uber? Uber's data that connects up two different types of users. Is that data being misused? The biggest complaint people say is, "Oh, the Uber driver asked me for my phone number." This is the worst problem in the world?
well, some people also would argue that Uber's use of drivers is dismantling some of these labor rights that have been long fought over the last decades.
You see, we know labor and a job are outdated concepts, right? Almost everybody is in some way responsible for creating their own future. I ask Uber drivers all the time, why are they Uber drivers? It says they don't want to have a boss. If they want to work today, they work. If they don't want to work today, they don't work. If they don't want to be a driver, they give it up and do something else. And we see this in all areas where we're able to take control of how we manage our work life, our personal lives. And we're much more in control, and we need to be in control of our own futures.
Well, some might argue that individuals have less control than ever before when you have companies that are profiting off of personal data, and there isn't necessarily the opportunity for individuals to maintain that kind of access. And you have companies, and you've been looking at changes in companies for an incredibly long career. Where are you seeing some of the most transformational changes in that respect? And what has been most surprising?
I mean, to me, the most surprising thing is how much progress we're making toward a better world. So let me give you an example. Outside of Washington, D.C., there's a museum called the Air and Space Museum. And in there, you could see the history of flight in one building, from the Wright brothers in 1900 to the space shuttle in 2000. So in 100 years, we went from not being able to fly to being able to go to the moon. We are now in the 20th century, 20 years into going from a world where we had almost no information, limited information and understanding, to where we now have information about almost everything. Right? Go on your iPhone, ask it any question, and you can get an answer. And ask yourself, what does the next 80 years bring us? And yes, there's issues. Right? That's why I said these four issues. Yes, there's issues of monopoly. We need to worry about that. Yes, there's issue about users and citizens being informed and having the right tools. Yes, we have to worry about efficiency, having more innovation, more entrepreneurs. And yes, there's issues of security. But if we get these four right, then we're going to see an incredible acceleration in our abilities to have a sustainable social system.
So, thinking about kind of this point about climate change that you referenced earlier, this has been kind of one of our top questions. Thinking about problems like climate change, where it's something that everyone has a responsibility in. Is this something that the digital transformation, do you see it being able to enable that?
I do, but that's a tough question to answer, right? And so what I would say is we have two sustainability issues in front of us, right? One is the social sustainability, and the other one is the environmental sustainability. And in some sense, you can't separate them, right? Now, there's a lot of people, right, in the innovation entrepreneurship space that are working on issues of environmental sustainability, right? Whether it's in food, whether it's in carbon capture, whether it's in plastics, whether it's in everything. And I see us being able to make tremendous progress, not only in the environmental issues, but the social issues. And as we improve one, it's going to help us in the other, right? How do you deal with mass migration, right? You need to work on the social sustainability of all societies. So while there's no simple answer to the social sustainability, there's no simple answer to the global sustainability or environmental, but we're sort of marching into the future together, and if we neglect one at the expense of the other, we're going to have problems.
And unfortunately, we're running very close on time, and it appears that you have such a very optimistic view of the future. But if there's one of these concepts that we really should prioritize, as if we don't get this right, it'll be incredibly harmful, which of those would it be and why?
I have to say it's the security. And the reason I say that, for better or for worse, we live in because of the digital technology, we live in a completely connected world. And unless we can get the security sorted out, where we trust the system in a global way, we can solve the other ones.
Great, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Zoltan.
Thank you
to the
very
audience.
much.
Thank you so much, Natalie and Zoltan. Let's give them a big round of applause.